Hello, it's Alex and welcome to Hey Little Thrifter. Today I'm going to be talking about my Paperbacks From Hell collection. If you haven't already read Paperbacks From Hell by Grady Hendrix, then I highly recommend it. It is an excellent book focusing on the heyday of horror fiction in the 1970s and 80s and its decline in the 1990s. This book is really well put together. It is interesting and informative and entertaining, and that's not to mention all of the amazing reproductions of the cover artwork in here. It goes through different subgenres, and not only does it talk about different books and their authors, it also talks about the different publishing companies of that era and some of the artists who did the amazing cover art for these books. So yeah, if you haven't already read it, definitely recommend you do. Anyway, I thought it would be fun to take a look at my shelves and see which books that were featured in Paperbacks From Hell I actually have in my collection. I will say I don't use this book as a specific checklist. I know I've heard some people say they really want to collect all of the books mentioned in here, and to them I say good luck. Personally, that's not my goal. There are a few titles that I specifically did track down because of what I read about them in Paperbacks From Hell, but for the most part I don't use it as a checklist necessarily, but more as a general inspiration. I've been collecting vintage horror for a good couple of years now. Before that, I kind of lived vicariously through Will Erickson's blog, Too Much Horror Fiction. I've had his blog bookmarked for several years probably, and even though I wasn't collecting horror at the time, I just loved seeing the ones featured on his blog, and I know he had a hand in this book too. There's just something I really enjoy about collecting. I love when you stumble upon these titles out in the wild, in like thrift stores and library book sales. I also love tracking down a specific book or a specific edition even online. Yeah, there's just definitely something about that thrill of the hunt, and then you finally get it in your hands and then you even get to read it. Yeah, so there's so much to love about it, and I love having a big library of books to just admire their existence, and you know, I get a lot of options to choose from when I'm picking my next book to read. So I went through my shelves thinking I'd have maybe 20 or so books and it would just be a quick and fun video, but it turns out I have 64 titles, which is more than I realised. I have no idea how many books exactly are mentioned in here, but I know it's a lot more than 64, but even so, that's more than I thought I had, and of those I've read 37 of them. So I've read more than half of those, almost 2/3, so I think that's a pretty good ratio. So I will go through all of the books that I have that were mentioned in here. I basically just flipped through the book from start to finish and kind of grabbed anything that I saw I had. I might have even missed a couple, but anyway, this gives you a good idea of my Paperbacks From Hell collection as of today. Most of the books I have are vintage editions, although not all of them are the exact same editions as featured in Paperbacks From Hell. Some of them are more recent editions, and some of them aren't even paperbacks. But anyway, here we go. I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly, but if you would like any more specific information about any of them, just ask me in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. The Guardians, books 2 and 3 by Peter Saxon. Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. The Other by Thomas Tryon. The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. To the Devil a Daughter by Dennis Wheatley. Incubus by Ray Russell. Son of the Endless Night by John Farris. The Guardian by Jeffrey Convitz. Shrine by James Herbert. The Keep by F. Paul Wilson. Doll's Eyes by Barry Wood. Michelle Remembers by Michelle Smith and Lawrence Pazder, MD. The Obsession of Sally Wing by Russ Martin, The Possession of Jessica Young by Russ Martin, The Omen by David Seltzer, The Reaping by Bernard Taylor, The Godsend by Bernard Taylor, Childmare by A.G. Scott, Somebody Come and Play by Claire McNally, Mazes and Monsters by Rona Jaffe, still don't know, Hobgoblin by John Coyne, The Fog by James Herbert, Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco, The House Next Door by Anne Rivers Siddons, The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson, 666 by Jay Anson, The Nursery by William W. Johnstone, The Stepford Wives by Ira Levin, Harvest Home by Thomas Tryon, The Auctioneer by Joan Sampson, A Manhattan Ghost Story by T.M. Wright, The Influence by Ramsey Campbell, The Face That Must Die by Ramsey Campbell, Pin by Andrew Niederman, My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews, Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, Fever Dream by George R.R. Martin, Hotel Transylvania by Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough. One of my favourites, Sweetheart, Sweetheart by Bernard Taylor, The Elementals by Michael McDowell, Black Ambrosia by Elizabeth Engstrom, When Darkness Loves Us by Elizabeth Engstrom, Wait and See by Ruby Jean Jensen, The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum, Tricycle by Russell Rhodes, Volume 1 of Clive Barker's Books of Blood, Animals by John Skipp and Craig Spector, Save the Last Dance for Me by Judy Miller, Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris, Headhunter by Michael Slade, Ghoul by Michael Slade, Black Christmas by Thomas Altman, The Lifeguard by Richie Tankersley Cusick, Slumber Party by Christopher Pike, another of my favourites, The Cipher by Kathy Koja, Bad Brains by Kathy Koja, XY by Michael Bloomline, Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Bright, The Night Walker by Thomas Tessier, A Nest of Nightmares by Lisa Tuttle, and last but not least, Spectre by Stephen Laws. So those were all of the books that I currently have in my collection that were featured in Paperbacks from Hell. There are some excellent books there. If you are new to my channel, I mostly talk about horror fiction here, and my main interest is vintage horror, so specifically the 1970s, 80s and 90s. I talk about these books in my monthly reading wrap-ups and individual book reviews, and I share new books that I've added to my collection, or at least new to me books, in monthly book hauls. Let me know if you've read Paperbacks from Hell, if you have any Holy Grail titles that you're still on the hunt for. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!